Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some ProRevenge. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around and you're able to pry the cookies away from the chameleon, you might be able to have one. Good luck with that. Alright, our first story today comes to us from Intelligent Stop 5564. Customer calls me a cow, goes to jail for 2 years, and has to pay thousands of dollars. Let's jump right in. I worked as an overnight telephone banker for a few years. I would answer account questions, transfer money, make credit card and loan payments, help with login issues, etc. I worked on the overnight team and didn't have quite as much access as people in different departments did. I could see your loan balance and take a payment, but if you had a really intricate question, you need to call back during the day. I had a certain level of access to credit cards, but not as much as the credit card team did. Less access, but I had access to virtually every type of account we had. One night, a rude person called in because they were upset their credit card declined. I started looking at it and realized the customer was attempting to make a cash advance withdrawal on a secured credit card. He wanted to pull out $5,000, which was his entire credit limit, on a card that was less than 5 days old. Everything about this transaction was high risk, but the man answered every security question correctly and was calling in from the phone number on the account. His secured card was funded by a $5,000 withdrawal from his own checking account, making it a little less risky. I couldn't have helped him get the full $5,000. $5,000 was a purchase limit, and his cash advance limit was $300. I could have upped it a little, maybe $500 or so, but not his whole credit limit. Most credit cards don't let you do that. This man bullied and insulted me at every opportunity, doing things like telling his companion, "It shouldn't be too much longer before this stupid cow unlocks my account." Honestly, that kind of treatment would make me work slower, not faster. To kill time, I look at the checking account the secured card was funded from. It had been opened a month before, held a $100 balance with no activity at all, until a $25,000 cashier's check was deposited a few days before. I pull up a copy of that check and see that it's from a major bank that has a 24-hour call center. I put the customer on hold, call the bank, and ask them if they can verify the validity of the cashier's check. It's a fake. The routing number and account number are valid, but the check number and account number do not match what they have on file. They wouldn't tell me anything else, but that was fine. I put a fraud block on the man's credit card, so restrictive only a manager in the fraud department could remove it. Next, I do the same thing for his checking account, practically canceling his debit card and start writing an email to our new accounts recovery department telling them the $25,000 deposit was a fake. Next, I access our wire and ACH system. A bank had sent a request for an $8,000 withdrawal that morning and it had initially been approved. I reversed it so we would get that money back. We had another $7,000 withdrawal that was pending for the following business day. The blocks I put on the account would ensure that it would decline, but I added an extra code that meant referred to fraud. Only an idiot would override that code to allow the transfer to go through without reviewing all the facts. The man is on hold for so long, he calls back on a different phone to complain about me and complain that his debit card was now declining. My coworker can see I'm all over his account, so she puts him on hold, walks over, and asks me what's going on. I explain and ask her to get the incoming phone number he dialed from. She calls it out and I do a phone number search. Wouldn't you know it, another brand new account with a different name crops up. It's about 2 weeks old and has a $100 balance. I freeze the account and explain to new account recovery that the man had called in from the phone number on this account and I suspected they were going to try to use the account for fraudulent purpose. 30 minutes go by and I finish filing the reports that I need to on the 2 checking accounts and credit card I've frozen. We've built up a small queue with 3 callers waiting, so I jump back on the phones and it's the same man. He's blocked his phone number, but I recognize his voice and the background sounds at the casino. He doesn't recognize me, so he gives me another account number with a 3rd name on it. Instead of being at the cashier trying to get them to process a huge cash advance, He's at an ATM machine trying for the $1,000 maximum on the machine. Before I even finish my security verification questions, I block his card. I start asking questions as if I want to help him, apologizing for the inconvenience, and tell him I'll look into things. He fully verifies, and I realize I'm looking at an actual account. It's over 3 years old. He has direct deposits from his employer. He uses the debit card to fill up on gasoline, etc. I pretend there's a problem with the telephone number he gave me and ask if there's another number we might have associated with the account. He gives me another phone number, and it's the same number my colleague had given me a few minutes ago. Is there any other number you might have used when this account was open, sir? He gives me a third number. This third number is tied to 2 closed accounts that had significant losses to the bank. They were opened, fake deposits were made, and cash was withdrawn before the branch realized the deposits were bad. One account had caused a $7,000 loss, and the other had caused a $2,000 loss. Unfortunately, sir, I'm not able to clear this up. We need you to step into a branch with your driver's license in order to have this block removed. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. The man was irate, screaming he had over $6,000 in his checking account and even more in savings. Thank you for pointing out the savings account. I hadn't actually gotten around to looking for it yet. There's over $3,000 in that account. I block it too. Next, I notice he has a credit card in good standing with us. Blocked it. I write new account recovery another email explaining why I think this man is the actual perpetrator of the fraud on these 2 older accounts and the attempted fraud on the accounts I had emailed them about earlier. When I'm done, I look up his branch info and send the branch manager a lengthy email explaining why I had blocked all of these accounts, that this man owed us thousands of dollars for his other recent thefts, and explained who to contact if he wanted to try to get any blocks from any accounts removed. Fraud and new account recovery both investigated this man up the yin-yang. They found more fraud accounts I had missed. They pulled security footage from different branches showing the same man opening these accounts at different locations. They pulled phone calls showing he had the same voice. They showed the phone numbers he called in on. Everything was turned over to the DA, who issued a subpoena to the cell phone companies and was able to link him to all 3 phone numbers. The phone numbers were also tied to fraud accounts at 2 other banks. He had 6 fake driver's licenses. The man was sentenced to 2 years in jail and ordered to pay over $30,000 in fines and restitution. All because I started digging in and investigating him after he called me a cow. OP, I can't believe this person called you a cow. I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. I was really glad when you milked him for as much information as you could. And like a cow, you seem to be outstanding in your field. The stakes were really high here, and they tried to steer you in the wrong direction. But you grabbed the bull by the horns and made him the laughing stock. And to top it off, after hearing all this, I'm sure your boss was over the moon. This next story comes to us from White Wolfie 95. Boss yells at me for not doing the impossible, gets fired and banned from the business. Let's jump right in. A while back, I worked on a cruise ship as a photographer. I will omit the name of the line. The direct management in charge of me was extremely rude in all given situations, but I didn't join for comfort. I joined for the experience as a photographer and for the travel. We stopped in Ireland and people were getting off the ship to explore the town. My job at port time was to get down there and sell photos to commemorate people's time at the stops. People often tell me no as soon as they see what I'm about to ask. I have to ask as many as possible, but I'm not going to push people. They paid to enjoy their cruise. The quota for this particular stop was 200 photos. I got about 50 or so. I board and report. My manager is not happy. He takes my camera away. He orders me to report for janitorial duties for the remainder of the cruise. Authority he didn't have in the slightest. He must have confused his power with that of a 1700s Royal Navy captain. I report him straight to Human Resources, along with a full report of his management style thus far. They told me I did the right thing. I can't control how many people want their photos taken. They called him in, and from what I understand, he denied all of it, even taking my camera. He said, "It was damaged. I took it away to have it repaired. It's a simple misunderstanding." The next day, he told me I was fired for damaging the camera, the one that wasn't damaged. Fed up with him and the lack of common sense from the Human Resources office, I reported him to the security of the ship. Security cameras were accessed and footage was sent to the Human Resources desk. He was immediately fired. This was not the first complaint. However, it was the first time someone had went through the trouble to prove it. He was banned from using or working on any of the cruise ships owned by that company. Due to my swift action, the paperwork reporting me as fired was not yet filed, so I kept my job. A new manager took over, and I actually enjoyed the rest of the assignment. The kicker is, I was looking for employment with a different cruise line. He was the hiring manager for the different company, and refused me despite the fact that I have experience and am far overqualified for the position. I reported him to the new company's complaint office and put them in contact with our previous employer. I received an email about an hour ago that Mr. X is no longer working for us and a new assistant will be taking over your hiring process. We apologize for the unpleasantness of this encounter and ask that it not discourage you from applying with our company in the future. Wonder where I'll see this guy next. I have a feeling it won't be the last time. OP, I think you're not the only one with that feeling at this point. That guy's gonna be looking over his shoulder at any job in that industry to see if you ruin it for them. Well done. At this point, he's just going to have to jump ship and find a different industry to work in. This story really made me think though, and I have a couple of questions for anybody who's worked in the cruise ship industry. If somebody gets fired and they're not in their home port, do they fly them back? Do they send them off in a rowboat and wish them well? What's the deal here? Somebody comment down below and let me know how that works. Our next story today comes to us from onaplinth. Crappy bosses, F around and find out. Let's jump right in. I had a job working warehouse delivery for a store. The entire corporate structure was built on treating the people below you like crap, and that was passed down through every level. Managers would just bark orders and bitch you out for any reason they could think of. They paid about 25 cents over minimum wage, and the bosses drove BMWs and Mercedes. The big boss lived in an $8 million house. Our store was the freight hub for 4 others in the little chain, so we got to know the drivers from the other stores well, as they were always coming to load freight or drop stuff off. One day, we were sitting with 2 drivers from another store, and Buddy remarks that he and his partner are working over 60 hours a week. I say he must be doing okay with all that overtime pay. He says they're not getting overtime, just paid a straight time rate. I ask him if he signed an averaging agreement. He says no. He shows me his pay stub and there it is. His partner comes back and confirms all this, and they've been doing it for months. He asked his manager about overtime and been told that straight pay was just the way it worked. I tell them that's illegal and urge them to take it to labor relations. They're reluctant to rock the boat, figuring they'll be fired. So I drop it. We never got any overtime. Our warehouse was busy, our store was not. A couple months later, they're in again, and Buddy's partner tells us he and his girlfriend are moving back east, and he's giving his notice. I tell him again to file a complaint. Nothing to lose now, so he does. A few weeks go by, and when I come in one day, there are expensive boss cars parked all along the loading dock. My workmate says something big is going down. All the managers have been summoned and are inside with a bunch of people in suits. So we wander upstairs to see what's going on. The company bookkeeper had an office in our store and handled all the payroll. He was a Chinese immigrant, nice guy. The bosses were trying to pin this on him, saying he didn't speak English very well, which was true, and had obviously screwed everything up. Turns out he was a pretty cagey guy. He knew what they'd told him to do was illegal and was able to produce all the records of him telling them that, and of them telling him to basically just shut up and do it. He hands it all over and quits. I see Buddy with a new partner a few weeks later. He's got a pay stub for about 15 paychecks worth of earnings. Company got caught for all the overtime pay and a pretty substantial fine on top of that. added bonus, the second in command had driven over a nail when he parked his silver BMW on the loading dock and had a flat when he came out of the store. He opened his trunk and called me over and said, "Change that for me." I told him sorry, that's not my job, and if I hurt myself, my compensation claim would be denied. As he went in to call a tow truck, I stood on the loading dock and gazed upon all the havoc I had wrought, and my heart was glad. It's really interesting how this works because those bosses aren't going to face any criminal charges or anything like that. It is theft in the end, but if you stole 15 paychecks worth of money from the company, you'd be doing hard time. There's a definite divide here, and something just doesn't add up. I do want to add on that one of my favorite parts about this whole story is that the bosses found out that you don't have to speak English well to be incredibly intelligent. In fact, that guy was probably more intelligent than the bosses combined. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.